Hey there, welcome to today's episode. It's going to be a live and edited session. Apologies for any background noise, it's a noisy day here in London. We are using the Ableton Push 3, this is the non-standalone version powered by my Mac Mini M4, in order to make a fake sample. What we'll do, we'll create a fake sample, like something we found on a piece of vinyl. Then I'll chop that up and make a beat with it. And if you're my YouTube member, I will put whatever sample I cook up here onto a download link. You'll be able to download it and play around with it yourself. So let's get started. I've got my blank template open. I'm going to start with my MIDI track and we're going to add a device. I'm going to go to collections. I like to keep things organized. My yellow folder has all of these contact instruments. I showed you in another episode that if you want to pull your contact instruments up from the push device, this is how you set it up. There's a little video there. I'll put a link maybe somewhere on screen. And what you can do is we can go in here and find some instruments to get started with. I'm going to start with a Scarby Mark 1. Let's go with Dinner for Two. This is a Rhodes instrument. We'll switch over to our pad mode. And let's just check our scale. By default, it's C major. Let's do B minor for the sake of it. Or maybe try something different. Let's try Lydian. Yeah, I like that. Phrygian. I think that's how you say that. And that's all we want to do. We just want to cook up something that is going to sound like it's from an old record. I've got this set. We'll keep it in key and just noodle around. Use MIDI capture, I think. We're not worried about BPM or anything. I kind of even like just those sort of things I was noodling there. I don't know what this is, but we'll just kind of move up and down a little bit. Yeah, kind of like that. Use MIDI capture. It's not super tidy, but it's good enough. Let's crop it down as a loop. Remember when you're making samples as well, all I'm looking for is audio to chop and then do something completely different with it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that's kind of good enough. I don't really want to quantize too heavily because it will take out some of the life, but you can see my playing's pretty terrible. So what I will do, we'll quantize and then maybe we'll shift some notes around a little bit. So we'll just quantize by 100%, pull everything into line, just see if that sounds tighter. And actually, it doesn't even sound that bad quantized. Sometimes, as I say, you can take too much life out, but we'll leave it like that. We've got velocity variation, which is what I want. I don't want everything hitting at exactly the same velocity. So that sounds okay. Let's add another layer in then. We'll worry about effects and things later on. For now, let's just build the melody, the loop, whatever it's going to be. Let's add another track. I'm going to do another MIDI track, default, and we'll just follow the same again. I'm going to add a device, go to my collections. And here I've got all of my contact instruments. Let's open this up. Now, there we go. It's disappeared. Thought we were having a little bug there, a little Ableton bug. Didn't get rid of that written information for a second. Let's go with some bass. Let's put some bass in here. See what that sounds like. I want to check the BPM as well, because whenever you use MIDI capture, it's calculating the BPM for you. So it says 78.50. I'm going to slow it down to 74 BPM. I want it a little bit slower paced. Yeah, good enough. Let's add in a bass line. What have we got here? What's good vibes sound like? This is the Retrograde Bass by Teletone Audio. Sounds pretty nice though. Let's see what that's like. use MIDI capture. But I want however many bars, that's going to be 4 bars. So let's move the loop position back over 1. And then we'll extend that back out to 4 bars because I want all of that. Now here you can run into a problem because what you can see is this one particular note is not in line. It's not within the clip, so it's not playing. But you can zoom right in, and then I can use the edit button to hopefully select that note. The only problem is if you've got too much that you've recorded, you're going to be scrolling for a little while. Luckily that wasn't too bad. But here, move to this note. Just quantize that one note in, hopefully. Yeah, just like that. A little bit of bass, something playing through. I like the bass sample, but I don't think it's the right bass tone for this. So what we'll do is we'll swap that out. If we go over to our good vibes, we can use this hot swap button. The filtering system isn't perfect, I don't think, with Ableton just yet, but if I go into filters, I should be able to find that. I have to go into type, and then I will go along and find retrograde bass, and then I can pick all of the presets to audition them, if you will. So let's choose a nice place to start. Let's go with that one instead. Kind of like this bass cassette palm mute, just because it's so muted down, it's kind of pretty dull. It's almost like it's been filtered out. I'm going to leave it like that. Doesn't quite fit in with everything just yet, but I think we can make that work. So let's leave it on that preset. Let's go back now to bass cassette. I'm going to add a little reverb to the bass, which might sound strange, but I think it can put it into space where we kind of need it. We could put a reverb on the whole master channel because we might want to send everything through that to kind of glue it all together. But I think for now, let's just put it here. And I'm going to go with the hybrid reverb. And you know what? I've changed my mind. I am actually going to do that. Let's undo that, where we can undo our last action. Can we undo where we created that reverb? Didn't change that much. I'm going to put it on the master channel. So we're going to add it here. Let's add in a device, collections. I think it's going to be right to send everything through the same reverb. So let's do that and go back to the hybrid reverb. Let's put that in. Yeah. Let's take a look at our inputs in terms of mixing. And what else have we got here? Just take a quick look at our volumes. Good enough for now. Let's crack on with the melody or whatever else we're going to do with it. Because we're going to chop it up, I don't want to make it really full with too much detail. I'm going to leave it like it's a little part you found on a record somewhere where things kind of just broke down. There's a little bit of space, but we can, you know, build on this a little bit more. Let's add another track. Use another MIDI track, collections, and let's go with some more instruments. When you're thinking about this, what I would look at is the kind of layers of a cake, if you will, in terms of like the EQ. So if you've got a lot of instruments that are all kind of bottom heavy, you want to try and split those out a little bit. Now with the Rhodes, it's kind of middle ground. We're kind of up into the mids, a little bit into the highs. I'm wondering whether we can get something a little bit higher still in there. Maybe like a harp sound or something. Let's try this Irish harp. I think this is Native Instruments. Let's use that. Let's go with First preset, April Rain. Kind of nice. And I kind of like that just for noodling around with my finger. I kind of just like that. I think they sound kind of nice. So let's add maybe a little delay to that. Use MIDI capture, but it's not done a particularly good job here. It's found the MIDI, of course, but I'm just going to shift along. We're going to have to move over to this note and just quantize that because it's not correct so that I can get the loop position down. Now, it may work or it might not. We'll see. Let's come out of here. Let's move the loop position over. Just need to zoom back out a touch. And I want it there. But we need to change our start offset back to there. Yeah, good enough. Let's crop it down. Change the length to... what do we want here? Yeah, chopped it down to 2 bars is good enough. Just have that looping around, but that's really all I wanted. It was another little detail, and I just kind of like that. Kind of like strumming the harp along. Sounds pretty cool. And I think we'll leave it there so that we can make this into a sample, and then we can chop it up and do something else with it. I don't want to overcook it, as I said, because if you put too much in and then you're going to slice it up, there's not going to be little moments to kind of pick from. The last thing we need to do, though, is try and make it sound a little bit more like a sample. Now, I'm going to begin by going to my master channel where I have a bunch of stuff just kind of set up and ready. One of those things being, if we move over here, we've got our RC20, so we'll turn that on, which is obviously, I'm sure you're familiar with RC20, but it can add like a vinyl effect or a cassette effect. It's got a bunch of parameters you can tweak to just kind of gritty up your sound. We'll open that up. Because by default, somewhere along bank 7, I think, it takes some of the low end out. It carves some of the high end out as well on the EQ. You can turn the EQ off if you like, but I just want to make sure that we're not taking too much of the low end out. I want to keep that bass in there. So we'll start with that. I think noise amount, we'll kind of leave where it is. You can choose different noise types. I'll leave whatever the default is. It's probably like a vinyl noise. And actually, maybe we layer in a little bit more of our own ambient noise in a second. We've got this wobbly flutter amount. I might crank that up a little bit to make it a little bit wavy. Yeah, that's not sounding too bad. It's carving off some of the high end, which is good. Maybe we'll push that a little bit more. I just want to add another track so that we can add a little bit of ambient background noise to just make it, yeah, more gritty. So let's go back to our main track. We come out of here. We've got an audio track going spare, so we can click and add a clip because I just want to put a loop in. Let's go to my wave files and let's find a vinyl texture of some sort. That one's pretty good, albeit it's very, very loud, so we'll turn it down. But it's a good thing to be able to dial in. Just make sure that is set as a clip. Sometimes you have to trigger them. Good enough. Back to the master channel. And I have some other things. You can hear that RC20 is just going to be a bit of a pain playing in the background there for a second. I've got a glue compressor. I'm going to turn that on. And let's take a look at the glue compressor itself. I'm actually going to dial that in so it's fully wet, so 100% in terms of the mix. The reason being is that I really want to lift the noise floor up so that it sounds more like, yeah, it's going to bring all of that grit and that texture out more. It's getting there. You can hear how much of that RC20 is still kicking along. It dies down once it's had a chance, like it's affected by the noise being sent through it. So when there's a signal coming through, you'll hear all of that noise. What I want to do now, just quickly on the individual instruments, the dinner for two, where we've got our Rhodes, it needs that kind of crackle. So if you listen to old records, when you've got these kind of higher frequency instruments, you'll notice like the high-end peaks sometimes, they must distort because they're being pushed, I guess, when they were recorded, but it will break down a little bit. It sounds a little bit too clean. So let's go back to Dinner for Two. And I'm just going to add in fact, actually, we've got a saturator here. Let's use this saturation. I'm going to dial this in and see if we can drive it to get it to kind of crush a little bit. But you need to be mindful because whenever you push up the drive on a saturator, you're going to get the same thing when you've got your output. You need to kind of compensate for how loud it's going to get. So I'm going to turn the output down first. Actually, that's not sounding too bad. We need to do the same over with this April Rain, though, because otherwise that sounds too clean in comparison. So quickly just add a device to that. Collections, my effects, and then there'll be a saturator here that we can apply. And just do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take the output down and then just push the drive. Good enough. We'll play around with the sort of general levels in a second. I think it's sounding pretty close to what I want. The other thing I'm going to do is just play with the panning of it. If you've listened to old records again, you'll notice it's quite a lot of stereo width and panning. So if we want to kind of replicate that, we can just pan things a little bit. I might pan the Rhodes ever so slightly over to the left. I'm not going to go crazy with it. I don't want it too hard down to one side. And then we'll just push the little harp noise over a little. The bass I'll keep just running down the middle. And then we've got this vinyl effect, this gritty sim thing. So we'll leave that down the middle as well. And I think the final thing, I just want to put a little filter on the bass line. So let's go to our bass, and what we'll do is we'll add a device. Just going to filter it a touch, just run a little bit more of the high end out. There we go. We've now created a sample. Just waiting for that noise to disappear. RC20 is very loud. we've got that all set up now. Technically, you could just throw a drum loop in with that. It'd be kind of a cool just loop anyway to play around with. And maybe we just do that just for the fun of it, and then we'll move on and we'll chop it up. But if you wanted to, you've created your own little vinyl loop. That could just be a loop you found. Loop that thing up. If we had a new track, let's add an audio track. And we'll use a default track. We'll add a clip because all we want to do is throw a drum loop in here and just see what it sounds like. We are 74 BPM, so let's go to my wave files, drums. I think like an old school style break, so I'm going to go with British Music Library, and then go into breaks. Just turn preview off for a second, just as we're searching for something around the 70-ish BPM mark. That one's going to be good enough. We'll turn that down because it'll be really loud. Let's just turn it down a bit. Or even just like that, that's kind of cool. I just wanted to show you that as a demonstration. We're going to delete that out. We're not going to leave it like that. We're going to now make this into a sample. We need another audio track in order to do it. And we're going to go to audio tracks. I haven't left any headroom with any of this as well. Ideally, you want to leave a little bit of headroom. But let's add a default track. Got a new audio track that we can play with. Let's add... actually, we don't need to add anything because we're going to start resampling this. All I need is the audio track. So let's close that down. We're going to go to our inputs and outputs. We're going to arm this track to record because that's what we want to resample to for our loop. And we just need to make sure that when we're inside of our inputs and outputs, we're sending this as resampling is what I'm trying to say. So this is our inputs and outputs. Let's just select on there. Change this so that it is on input mode. And then we can select resampling. So technically, we should be good to go. Sometimes, though, I find with Ableton, you might have to reset this. Let's just see if it starts recording for us. Yeah, it does something very strange sometimes. I think it's a little bit of a bug. If I take this off, because it should just begin recording that loop now. If I take this off for a second and redo it, let's try it now. There we go. There we go, we've made our first loop. What we can now do is we can go over to master channel, take a look, and I'll quickly just mute out all of these effects because we don't need them anymore. They're all just sitting on the master channel. So we've baked that down. When we're looking at our tracks over on our audio track, this is now the new sample ready to go. I will put that into a Dropbox link. If you're a YouTube member, you want this sample here, you want to just play around with this gritty sample, you can do that. I'm going to chop this one down. So we're going to crop it because that's what we need. We need that amount. And what we can do is we can delete everything else. We're just going to commit to this. I don't need to come back to that. It was a fun exercise. But we've got this sample out of it. So we'll delete all of these other instruments. So the only thing that we have is this audio track. We can now convert that to be chopped up. So let's convert. You'll notice I had to turn the master channel effects back off because you don't want to be doubling up on those as you're playing your sample. But if I play this now, this is the loop. It's super gritty. Maybe in hindsight, I probably reduced some of the background noise, but I kind of like that. I do like some of the ambient noises in there. But that's our sample. Let's convert it and move over to a simpler. That's where we're going to start. I'm just going to move back to this other layout. And what we can do is we can slice this thing up. So let's go into slicing. By default, it gives you a ton of slices. There's all different ways. If you want to do it by region, manual, all that kind of stuff, you can do that with the push 3. I'm just going to turn the sensitivity down and hope that it's picked up enough of the transients at certain points where it kind of works for us. Good enough. The one thing with Ableton when you're chopping up like this, if you want more control, then it's better to convert it to a drum rack and get full non-destructive chops. The one thing you need to keep in mind though is that if you want to pitch the sample, it's better to pitch it while it's still in the simpler, because when you move it over to a drum rack, You've then got independent control for every pad, but then that means if you make a pitch change, you have to go in and change it for every pad, which can be a bit of a pain. So it's better to decide the pitch now and then play with it later on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and we're also going to change a couple of things. Let's go to global, where we can take a look at the overall gain, because we resampled this down, so it's not super quiet, but it could be a bit loud or louder. Let's put this up. And one other thing is we're going to put accent on fixed velocity for the push. And I'm going to worry about the start and end points later on. I just want to pitch this thing first, like we just mentioned. So let's go to transpose. I kind of like just one semitone, just a little bit of a switch. I'm now going to convert it to a drum rack. And now we've got more control over our start and end points. And mainly I'm looking for any problems like this one where it's going into the next transient, so you got like a click at the end. You can use fade in and fade out to get rid of them. I'm going to use a little click, the little end point even, to get rid of the click. If you want to put a fade out, you can. Just softens it. I don't even know if we'll use all of these. Probably not, but I want to adjust them anyway. That's kind of cool, even just loop like that. And I might want that bass note there, I kind of like as well. You get the idea. So we've got a bunch of little chops. We can mess around overall. I think what we'll do is we'll probably just up the volume. Let's go to the main. Let's make sure we're looking at our volume. Yeah. And what we'll do now is we'll add a couple of effects just to the sample slices. Not too many because it's already got a bunch of stuff in there, but let's do device collections. And I'm going to add a delay. Just like delays on my sample chops, always have done. Let's now try and find a break or something that we can mess around with. So we'll add a new track. Let's do it that way. Let's add a new track. And maybe we just use a straight up break so that we can get on with this because it's already been quite a long episode. Let's go to audio tracks, a default track, and then add a clip. Let's go to drums. Actually, let's go back. Sorry, my bad. I want to add a clip, and I want to go to wave files, drums, and then I'm not sure who's got a good loop. Maybe Tane. Let's go to Tane. My bad. I meant to come back out of that. Sorry, let's go back into clips. Go back into drums, wave files, drums. Let's try that again. They were all a little bit too quick. Let's try Tane Volume 2. I think this is King's Volume 2. Yeah, I like this one. I don't want to be too fussy now. So we've got that set up. This is our loop, is it? Trigger that. still got the original loop because we didn't delete that out. We'll delete it, but as you can hear, it's a pretty cool loop just as it is. Let's delete that so that we don't have that track anymore. Let's move back to our pad layout for this track. Already I can see plenty of loops patterns there. We need to decide on one though, because I don't want to make this much longer. Kind of like that, actually. I was thinking of just narrowing it down to one of those, but I think it works really well having all of those chops. I haven't got timing correction on. I'm just going to quantize and see if it kills it. Sometimes it does because of the timing. And the cool thing about that sample is that we put a bass line in. So in terms of just making a beat, something that could go out, really, it wouldn't need too much more than that. We've got a good drum loop. Put your sample chops in. There's a bit of a bass line in there already. Maybe just like a couple of little effects, a vocal sample. Maybe we do that just to kind of finish off. But let's just keep it really, really simple. Yeah, let's keep it really, really simple. So another track. This time we'll go MIDI track, and let's go for a default track so that we can add in a drum rack, I think. Something to add a couple of samples to play around with. Let's go to collections. Yeah, it's kind of funny, that writing staying on the screen there. That shouldn't happen for that long, I don't think. Let's go to favorites. Let's go to a drum rack. And so we've got a blank drum rack. As I said, a couple of small details, nothing crazy. Let's go and look for, I'm thinking maybe like a crash cymbal just to come in at the beginning of the loop, and maybe just an audio vocal or something like that. So let's go to here with our hot swap button and see if we can find a crash cymbal. I'll try and do it with the filter system. I'm not overly keen on it, if I'm being honest. What have we got? Drums, claps, snares. Let's see what else. Cymbals, and then we got crashes. Good enough. I don't want to spend too long on that. Felt like it didn't record in particularly great timing. Let's just go to the clip. Yeah, you can see it's off a little bit there. Probably more to do with human error. Let's just nudge that over to 0, if we can find 0. There it is. Could have just pressed the quantize button, actually. And with that particular sample, we can see here, let's go into the simpler. Actually, we can see transpose from here. good enough. Just wanted to pitch that down a touch. We can now choose another pad. See if we can find just a random vocal sample, and I'll call it quits for the day because it's been quite a long episode. Let's see what we've got in terms of our samples. We should be able to move up here and then go to wave files. Got some vocals. It might be one I've used before, but let's just see what's in here.
And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be. And
yeah, that's pretty cool. That one.
And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at. And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be.
Yeah, little break one there.
And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be. And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be. And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be. And it's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality.
Yeah, we'll have it like that. Just take our clip length for a second and we'll take that up to 4 bars so that it doesn't come around too often. In terms of our crash cymbal, I do want that every 2 bars, so we could just record that back in another position.
It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how it be.
You know what, actually, I want that just as it is. I was thinking about putting it in again, but as I listened back to it, I think it sounded okay. So, just with that crash cymbal there, that's what it is. There's a little bit of dead space. I was trying to work out why it didn't sound like it was coming in right at the beginning of the loop.
It's like when you get into it, it's like just...
Okay, final thing, just with our little vocal sample.
It's like just looking at reality on some. That's how I be.
Just going to have that come in as it comes through. I think if we turn automate on, that should do it for us as we're doing this.
It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how I be.
No, you have to hit the record button first. The MPC allows you to do that. That's one good thing about the MPC. It will just, as soon as you put the automate button on, it starts recording it automatically. I'm assuming with this one, we have to record in order to do it.
It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how I be. It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how I be. It's like when you get into it, it's like.
There we go. Pretty happy with that for today's episode. Long session. I'll maybe try and split it up with some time codes in post. But as I said, if you remember, you'll be able to download that sample. Hopefully you like the beat that we cooked up with it. I think it's really fun to make your own samples. Certainly not going to get stuck by the copyright police. And once you've got a piece of audio and you've chopped it, doesn't really matter where it comes from. Anyway, take care. I'll see you guys in the next episode. See you then.
It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at reality on some. That's how I be. It's like when you get into it, it's like just looking at